A lot of people spend their entire lives chasing validation, love, attention, approval, and material possessions, believing that all of these things will complete them and finally give them the peace they have always desired. They reach one goal only for another to appear. They finally find the partner they believed would bring peace, calm, and wholeness into their life, yet the relationship doesn't even last a few weeks or months. They chase success, recognition, spiritual knowledge, or even enlightenment itself, believing that somewhere beyond where they are now lies the version of themselves that will finally feel complete. But what they don't realize is that this feeling of incompleteness is an illusion of the mind. The reason nothing outside of you has ever truly satisfied you is because there is nothing existing outside of you. As within, so without. As above, so below. This is one of the most important universal laws taught within the ancient mystery schools to their initiates. It explains that the universe is mental, and everything that appears material is simply a holographic projection of the mind. This means reality is an extension of who you are as the conscious observer. Once this concept is truly understood and fully grasped, the initiate no longer sees the material world as something separate from themselves, but as something they are actively creating through their thoughts. This is the key to manifestation. And this is perhaps the greatest misunderstanding of the human experience, the belief that fulfillment is something we acquire rather than something we uncover. From the moment a child is born, society conditions them to believe that happiness exists somewhere outside of themselves. The child is taught to study hard, obey instructions, and work toward a better future. Then, as adults, they continue approaching life in exactly the same way, working harder, earning more money, finding the right partner, and achieving enough success, believing that all of these things will finally give them the life they have always wanted. But with every step they take toward what they seek, they discover something strange. The closer they move toward it, the farther it seems to move away. And this is how millions of people spend their entire lives without realizing they are running toward a horizon that keeps moving farther away. The mind is designed to seek. The moment it reaches one destination, it immediately invents another. The mind cannot survive unless it convinces you that fulfillment is always somewhere else. It whispers, just one more achievement, just one more relationship, just one more spiritual breakthrough. Then you'll finally feel whole. But that feeling of wholeness never comes. Instead, the search simply changes its form. Someone searching for money eventually begins searching for status. Someone searching for status begins searching for recognition. Someone searching for recognition starts searching for purpose. Even the spiritual seeker can become trapped, endlessly searching for higher vibrations, hidden knowledge, mystical experiences, or enlightenment itself, believing that the next book, the next teacher, or the next spiritual practice will finally deliver the peace they've been longing for. The object changes, the search remains. The ego doesn't necessarily disappear when you become spiritual. Sometimes it simply puts on spiritual clothing. It no longer says, I want to become rich. Instead, it says, I want to become enlightened. Yet both desires can arise from the very same belief, that who you are right now is somehow incomplete. This is one of the most subtle illusions the mind creates. And when you believe completion exists outside of you, your life becomes an endless pursuit. You stop living. You start waiting. Waiting for the perfect relationship, waiting for financial freedom, waiting until you've healed enough, waiting until you've meditated enough, waiting until you finally become the person you imagine you're supposed to be. And while you're waiting, life quietly passes by. The present moment becomes nothing more than a bridge leading toward an imagined future. But the future never arrives. When it does, it simply becomes another present moment that the mind immediately rejects in favor of another future. This is why so many people spend their entire lives chasing fulfillment without ever truly experiencing it. How can you search for something in a place where it can never exist? Imagine trying to fill a cup that has no bottom. No matter how much water you pour into it, it can never become full. There is nothing wrong with the water. The problem is that the cup lacks completion. The ego functions much like that cup. It feeds on becoming. It is built upon the belief that who you are today is insufficient, and that fulfillment exists only after some future transformation. The more you feed this belief, the stronger it becomes. Every achievement provides only temporary satisfaction before another desire appears. Every success creates another standard. Every destination becomes another starting point. This is why even those who seem to have everything often continue searching, because the search was never about the object. It was about the identity that believed it was incomplete. And as long as that identity remains unquestioned, no external achievement can ever satisfy it. This isn't an argument against dreams, ambition, or creating a beautiful life. There is nothing wrong with pursuing meaningful goals. There is nothing wrong with building loving relationships, creating abundance, or expressing your unique gifts. The difference lies in why you're pursuing them. Are you creating from wholeness? Or are you searching because you believe something is missing? These two paths may look identical from the outside, but inwardly they produce completely different experiences. One comes from freedom. The other comes from lack. One says, "I choose this because it expresses who I already am." The other says, "I need this so I can finally become enough." The first creates peace regardless of the outcome. The second creates attachment. And attachment always produces fear, because the moment your happiness depends upon something outside yourself, fear enters the picture. You begin fearing loss. You fear rejection. You fear failure. You fear being alone. You fear not becoming the person you imagined yourself to be. In this way, attachment quietly transforms love into possession, purpose into pressure, success into survival. The irony is that the harder you cling to external things for completion, the heavier they become. Relationships begin carrying impossible expectations. Careers become sources of identity instead of created expression. Even spirituality becomes another race with no finish line. But life has a remarkable way of revealing this illusion. Sometimes through disappointment, sometimes through heartbreak, sometimes through loss, sometimes through profound silence. There often comes a moment when everything you've been leaning on begins to fall away. The relationship ends, the career changes, the dream you've been chasing no longer excites you. The identity you've spent years building begins to crack. At first, this can feel terrifying. It feels as though life is taking everything away from you. But in reality, life isn't taking anything away. It is simply removing everything that convinced you that you were incomplete. Because only when the noise begins to fade, only when the endless pursuit begins to slow down, can you finally hear something that has been quietly waiting beneath it all. A presence that has never been absent. A stillness that has never needed improvement. A part of you that has never depended on achievements, possessions, relationships, or recognition to know its own worth. And the day you begin to recognize that presence, everything changes. Imagine an actor who becomes so immersed in their role that they completely forget they are acting. They begin believing the script is their real life. Every victory feels absolute. Every failure feels permanent. Every criticism feels like an attack on their very existence. But the moment they remember they are the actor rather than the character, the story loses its power to imprison them. And this is what awakening truly is. Not becoming someone new, but remembering what you have always been beneath every role you've ever played. The mind, however, resists this realization because it has spent its entire existence constructing an identity from memories, achievements, opinions, relationships, and experiences. It constantly asks, "Who am I?" Then it immediately answers with something temporary. "I am my career. I am someone's partner. I am successful. I am spiritual. I am intelligent. I am broken. I am healing." Yet every one of these descriptions depends upon changing circumstances. If your identity depends upon something that can disappear, then fear will always accompany it, because deep down you know it isn't permanent. This is why attachment creates suffering. We unknowingly ask temporary things to provide permanent security, and temporary things can never fulfill that request. Think about how often people say, "I'll finally be happy when I earn more money, when I find my soulmate, when people appreciate me, when I heal from my past, when my life becomes easier." Notice what all of these statements have in common. They postpone peace. They place your well-being somewhere in the future, making it dependent upon circumstances that have not yet arrived. In doing so, they cause you to lose touch with the present moment and the opportunities that could bring you everything you seek. If the mind has never learned to be at peace in the present, it simply invents another condition for happiness. This is why desire itself is not the problem. The problem is believing that your completeness depends upon fulfilling that desire. Everything in this world is constantly changing. The seasons change, relationships change, the body changes, thoughts change, emotions change, even mountains slowly change. Impermanence is woven into the very fabric of existence. Yet the mind continuously demands permanence from an impermanent world. It wants certainty in a reality built upon movement. It wants guarantees in a universe that is forever unfolding. This constant resistance creates unnecessary suffering, not because life is against us, but because we keep asking life to become something it was never designed to be. There is a profound difference between appreciating something and depending upon it. You can deeply love another person without making them responsible for your happiness. You can enjoy wealth without making it your identity. You can pursue meaningful work without allowing success or failure to define your worth. The moment something becomes the source of your completeness, you've unknowingly handed your freedom away, because now your inner peace rises and falls with external events. This is why so many people live in a constant state of emotional turbulence. When life gives them what they want, they feel elevated. When life takes it away, they feel empty. Their emotional state becomes entirely dependent upon circumstances beyond their control. But true freedom begins when your peace is no longer negotiated with the outside world. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means your well-being is no longer held hostage by outcomes. And this is what so many ancient sages were trying to point toward. Not a life without relationships, not a life without dreams, not a life without emotion, but a life where your inner stability remains untouched by the ever-changing tides of experience. This is the difference between attachment and love. Attachment says, "I need you to complete me." Love says, "I choose to share the completeness that already exists within me." Attachment fears loss because it believes something essential can be taken away. Love understands that while people may leave, circumstances may change, and seasons may come to an end, the source from which love arises remains untouched. The same is true for abundance. Someone who is attached to money constantly fears losing it. Someone rooted in inner abundance understands that wealth is something they experience, not something they are. The same is true for success. The same is true for recognition. The same is true for every external pursuit. The deeper your identity becomes rooted in awareness itself, the less dependent you become upon changing conditions. And this is often when life begins to flow with greater ease. Not because the universe suddenly starts rewarding you, but because you've stopped resisting reality. You've stopped trying to force life into the shape your ego imagined. You've stopped arguing with what is. And something remarkable begins to happen. Instead of chasing every desire, you become curious about the one doing the chasing. Instead of asking, "How do I get what I want?" you begin asking, "Who is it that believes it needs something in order to become whole?" That question changes everything. The one you've been trying to complete by seeking external things is not your true self. It is the image you've built from memory, comparison, fear, and desire. and images can never become whole, because they are only ideas. The true self requires nothing to complete it. It simply is. Like the sky that remains untouched by passing clouds, like the ocean that remains whole despite every wave on its surface. Your thoughts come and go. Your emotions rise and fall. People enter your life. Dreams are fulfilled and new dreams emerge. Yet beneath every experience remains the same silent presence, the conscious observer. If you have followed this journey with an open mind, you may begin to realize something remarkable. The one who has been constantly searching outside of itself is beginning to lose its grip. Not because your desires have disappeared, but because you've begun to question the one who believed it was incomplete. This is where true transformation begins, not by changing your circumstances, not by becoming a new person, but by seeing through the illusion that you were never lacking in the first place. For almost your entire life, you have been taught to build yourself, build a career, build relationships, build a reputation, build beliefs about who you think you are. Eventually, you become so identified with everything you've built that you forget the one who is doing the building. And when one of those structures begins to crumble, it feels as though you are crumbling with it, without realizing that you are not the structure. You are the awareness that has been witnessing every structure come and go. Think back to every version of yourself that has ever existed. The child who dreamed of becoming an adult, the teenager searching for an identity, the person who experienced their first heartbreak, the version of you that celebrated victories, the version of you that mourned painful losses. Every one of those experiences felt completely real while you were living through it, yet each one eventually faded into memory. Still, something remained. Something witnessed every chapter without becoming trapped inside any one of them. That witnessing presence has never been damaged by failure. It has never become greater because of success. It has never become more valuable because someone loved you, nor has it become less valuable because someone walked away. It has simply observed, always present, always aware, always whole. Perhaps this is why so many spiritual traditions describe awakening as remembering rather than achieving, because nothing essential needs to be added to your being, only the illusion needs to fall away. Imagine standing before a mirror covered in years of dust. The reflection appears distorted. You might spend years trying to fix the image in the mirror, never realizing that the image was never the problem. The only thing preventing clarity was what had accumulated on the surface: conditioning, fear, attachment, comparison, the constant belief that your worth depends upon becoming someone else. Spiritual awakening is not about creating a new reflection. It is simply removing what has been obscuring the one that was always there. This is why inner freedom feels so ordinary once it arrives. Many people expect enlightenment to be a dramatic explosion of mystical experiences, a permanent state of bliss, a life completely free from challenges. But in reality, enlightenment is waking up from the endless belief that happiness exists somewhere other than here. Life does not suddenly stop presenting difficulties. Loss still happens, people still leave, the body still ages, plans still change. The world continues moving according to its own rhythm. The difference is that your peace is no longer built upon circumstances remaining the same. Instead of resisting change, you begin moving with it. Instead of asking life to complete you, you begin allowing life to express itself through you. This subtle shift changes everything, because when you no longer seek relationships to fill an inner emptiness, you begin to love more freely. When you no longer chase success to prove your worth, your work becomes an expression of creativity rather than survival. When you no longer pursue spiritual knowledge to become special, wisdom begins to arise naturally through direct experience. Even manifestation begins to take on a completely different meaning. Many people believe manifestation is about attracting what you do not have, but perhaps its deeper purpose is revealing what you already are. When you live from a state of inner lack, you unconsciously create more experiences that reflect that lack. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because your perception continually filters reality through the belief that something is missing. The moment you recognize your own wholeness, your relationship with life begins to change. You stop creating from desperation, you begin creating from inspiration. You stop grasping, you start allowing. You stop asking, "What can life give me?" And instead, you begin asking, "How can life express itself through me?" This is the paradox that so many ancient mystics tried to convey. The less you cling to life, the more fully you experience it. The less you demand certainty, the more peaceful uncertainty becomes. The less you seek validation, the more authentic your relationships become. The less you fear losing, the more deeply you appreciate what is already here. You discover that freedom is not found by escaping the world. It is found by no longer expecting the world to provide what only awareness can reveal. If this message resonates with you, it may be a sign that you're beginning to question reality more deeply. This channel was created for people who are on that same journey. So if you'd like to continue exploring manifestation, esoteric knowledge, spiritual awakening, enlightenment, Gnostic teachings, and personal transformation, click the subscribe button and join our growing community. And if this video brought you value, make sure to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. It helps the algorithm recommend this message to more people who may need to hear it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.